I'd like to thank the Plainville High School Choir and Mr. Helming for their wonderful presentation of the holiday songs. They sounded like we were watching Broadway. Thank you, everyone, for being with us this evening, and that was a great way to start the holidays. I'd now like to convene the regular business meeting for the Plainville Board of Education for Monday, December 13th, 2021. Lori, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd also like to take a moment of silence for the Newtown victims, as tomorrow is the 9th anniversary of the horrendous happenings in Newtown. So if we could take a moment of silence for that, please. Thank you. We have a special recognition this evening. Mr. Page, you want to help me present the Portrait Pioneer Award?
Sure. Good evening. I usually say it's the favorite part of my meeting, but after starting with our amazing carolers, I think that may have taken the cake tonight. I just want to thank again Mr. Helming and all of our high school choir members, chamber choir, and just incredible talent. We're so fortunate to have the highest level instructors and amazing kids to perform. So that was a great way to start our night. At this time, just to give a background for those of you who may be new to the Portrait Pioneer Award, the Portrait Pioneer Award was really established to celebrate the pillars of our Portrait of the Graduate qualities that we really wanted to emulate and exemplify first in our staff members and recognize those staff members who really demonstrate those qualities every day. Being communicative, collaborative, resilient, innovative, and mindful, and really being a leader among our community. So I offered up the opportunity for anyone in our school community to acknowledge any of our school staff members. And every month we have usually one, sometimes more, members of our staff who are recognized. Tonight, it's my pleasure to congratulate Mr. Jonathan Dunlap, our PHS culinary arts teacher, who taught here in the English department for many years and transitioned to culinary arts. He's a man of many, many talents. And I think someone else here would agree with that assessment of Mr. Dunlap. So I have a good friend here at the high school, happens to be the name of Andrew West. He's sitting next to Mr. Dunlap, a tremendous young man who I like to spend time with and visit here at the high school. His mom Gina, joins us, proudly videotaping there. But Andrew, when I was talking with Andrew, he said, "There's someone I really want to nominate for the Portrait Pioneer Award. Is it too late?" So I said, "Of course not." And he said, "Well, great, because I have the perfect person for this." And I'm going to read what Andrew, I asked him if he wanted to read it, but he was a little nervous. I understand. It's a lot of pressure up here. So I'm going to read what Andrew wrote about Mr. Dunlap. "I'd like to nominate Mr. Dunlap because he is always looking out for me and always helping me in culinary. There is no other way to describe Mr. Dunlap. He is the most caring, fun-loving teacher I have ever met. He has helped me during my cooking journey so far. I always wanted to take a culinary class, but didn't think I could with my disability. But last March, before ever being my teacher and not knowing who I was, he took the time went out of his way to Google Meet with me while I was home recovering from a leg surgery. He told me all about the class and the accommodations that he could make, and we also talked about the modified materials we would need. Mr. Dunlap was so flexible with the needs I had and never discouraged me. When I started culinary this year, I had all modified materials I needed for his class. I also wanted to mention that Mr. Dunlap is very flexible with helping me out in the kitchen on our cooking days. He helps me cut stuff whenever I need a little help. I just love coming into culinary class and knowing that I can see that smile on Mr. Dunlap's face. Even though I can't see it because of the mask, I know it's there. I can see it. I just wanted to thank Mr. Dunlap for helping me out by going above and beyond. My parents bought me the same modified tools at home, and once a week, I make dinner. I love sharing what I make. I look forward to upcoming labs and taking Culinary 2 and 3. Thank you, Mr. Dunlap, for who you are. And I've seen pictures and I've heard testimony from Mom about Andrew's cooking at home, so he's really taking those skills and implementing it at home, and he's very proud of the outcome. So, Mr. Dunlap, on behalf of Andrew and on behalf of the district, I'd like, if you could come up, we'd like to acknowledge you with the Portrait Pioneer Award. Board Chair Gustavo, if you would help me with that. Andrew, come on up too. We'll bring up your whole family right now. And that concludes our special presentations.
So we have 3 sets of minutes this evening. If there are no objections or corrections to the minutes, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve items A through C, which include minutes of the November 8th regular business meeting of the board, minutes of November 17th, Facilities and Finance Subcommittee meeting, as well as the minutes from December 2nd, board orientation session.
The minutes of the November 8th.
Your mic. Sorry.
I approve the request of the approval of the minutes of November 8th, the regular business meeting of the Board of Education, as well as the minutes for the November 17th, 2021 special meeting, Faculties and Finance Subcommittee of the Board of Education, and the approval of the minutes of December 2nd, 2021 special meeting of the Board of Education.
I second
Do
the
we have a
motion.
second? Cassandra? All in favor? Show of hands, please. The motion unanimously passes. And are there, if we're going to do citizens' comments next, which would be if you would like to address the members of the Plainville Board of Education, you are welcome to do so. You'll have 3 minutes to voice the matter at hand or your area of concern. Does anyone wish to address the Plainville Board of Education? Does anyone wish to address the Plainville Board of Education? Does anyone wish to address the Plainville Board of Education? Take that as a no. Next, we have the council liaison. Ms. Scalisi, if you'd like to give your report.
Good evening, everybody.
I haven't been here in a while, so I have a few updates for you, but first I would like to recognize the wonderful job that the choir did prior to the meeting. They were outstanding. Certainly adds the flavor of the season to begin your meeting tonight, so please extend my congratulations to the students and the choir director. It was remarkable, and they did a fabulous job as always, so thanks for having that available. I just have a few updates from the town council. We're going to be having a meeting on Monday, so I can give you some updates as to some things we've discussed in our last meeting, along with some things we're going to be looking forward to. At our last meeting, we were introduced to Susan Lanzach. She is the new Director of Health for the Plainville-Southington Regional Health District. She began her duties a few weeks ago as she replaced Shane Lockwood, who took a position in Florida after working for the district since its inception approximately 9 years ago. So it was certainly wonderful to meet our new health director. She comes from the Chesprott Health District. That's a contraction for a few other towns that had formed a health district. She had worked there for 6 years as the acting director of health and chief sanitarian. She previously worked for the state health department, the Trumbull-Monroe Health District, and the City of West Haven Health Department. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in public health from Southern Connecticut State University, as well as a Master of Public Health degree from the same university. She was chosen to be the health director for the regional board by the members of the district after an extensive search, and she was one of 5 final candidates who were interviewed. She was very impressive with her background, enthusiasm, and personality. She was clearly the top choice for our health district. So we are very happy to have a new health director. She gave an update on some of her background and also an update on the COVID activity at that point in time last Monday. As we all know, practically the whole state of Connecticut is in the red right now. Red meaning it's a very active virus. A lot of positive tests are still coming through the system, and we have at our town council meeting we have reinstituted spacing of members, so we are now sitting 6 feet apart. I do hope we don't have to go back to Zoom meetings because it's preferable to certainly be in person, but we reinstituted spacing, so anybody that does come to our meetings, you notice we're not all together up on the podium. So we've done that for now. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully we can get through the holidays without too much difficulty, and after the first of the year. We reevaluate it every week as the numbers come out. I'm sure you're Superintendent LePage aware of the numbers as they continue to evolve. So we're keeping a close eye and doing the best we can with that. In addition to that, we spoke about our self-insurance health fund. The deficit some time ago was $2.37 million, and the plan was to utilize budget savings in the health insurance line items of both the town and Board of Education, as well as money available in the debt management fund for 3 years to eliminate the deficit. As a result of more favorable budget results, it is now anticipated there will be less needed to tap into the debt management fund to take care of this. Based on the latest information from the finance director, there were additional savings in both fiscal year 21 and 22 operating budgets of approximately $582,000. It was originally anticipated that the deficit in the self-insurance fund as of the end of this fiscal year would be $1.07 million. It is now anticipated that the deficit will be almost half of that amount, so that's truly good news for all involved. As a result, there will be a savings of approximately $582,000 that will not be needed from the debt management fund to eliminate the deficit. So we're slowly getting to taking care of that deficit. It's been out there for a few years. As you remember, some years ago, we transitioned over to a state group fund, insurance fund, and this is taking care of some previous deficits that we had. So it was good news that we had that done. Also, we spoke a little bit about the revaluation of real estate property in the town. This is required by state law every 5 years. About a year ago, the council authorized Tyler Technologies to perform the revaluation. Tyler completed their preliminary revaluation, and based on their initial analysis, the overall grand list for residential property has increased by 15% over the last 5 years. That's significant, to say the least. However, not all properties have gone up the same percentage amount. For example, residential properties have increased an average of 17%, while commercial properties have increased an average of only 3%. Other categories such as apartments, 44%, industrial properties, 20%, utilities, 6%, and vacant land, 3%. They've appreciated at varying rates. There were a lot of folks concerned about these increases as the revals were sent out to the property owners. However, as we all know, it's still too early in the process to predict the impact of these new amounts that will have on next year's tax bills. For example, changes in the motor vehicle grand list and the personal property grand list, which has historically increased, will also play a factor in determining the potential tax increase. It's anticipated that the grand list increase will result in a mill rate decrease when all is said and done. It should also be noted that motor vehicles taxes will go down because of the lower mill rate, which will help offset any potential increase in real estate taxes. So as we know, we are early in the budget process. I know the board is going to begin their deliberations. You've already done some work in it already. The town council has not looked at anything yet, of course. So we're a long way from a final answer to this, but there is some movement, and as soon as we get that information, this may not be probably available until the end of March, by the time the council finishes its complete budget review and decides where we're going to end up and what the mill rate should be. So it's going to be, we're still a ways off from that. However, residents who have any questions regarding their new assessed value are encouraged to contact Tyler Technologies to make an appointment at 860-793-0221, extension 7134. They are happy to explain how they came up with the new assessed value and make any changes if necessary after meeting with residents. We are also very cognizant of the fact that we are probably at the height of property values at this point in time. That has a lot to do with how all of these things translate to a tax reval. It is also pointed out by the town manager that if in a couple of years there is a significant change in those values, the town council could authorize another revaluation at that time. So although we have to do it every 5 years, if there's a significant and dramatic change prior to that, we can certainly authorize another revaluation to be done. So there is some flexibility in how we do this. We went through that, and that is it. So we will be meeting again on Monday. I will be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any for me right now. Everybody good? Okay, I would like to wish you, the staff, and everybody in the Plainville schools a very happy holidays, and most importantly, please stay healthy and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the superintendent's report. Steve?
Thank you. Mr. Ross, if you would put up the Unified Sports presentation first, please. You okay? All right, thank you. Last May, I presented a request. Well, it was really an overview of a request from Christina Kiley, our Supervisor of Student Services, Special Services, and Chris Farrell, our Athletic Director, for an expansion of our Unified Sports, what had been an after-school activity or club for the last few years, to evolve into them being, approved CIAC sports, interscholastic activities and sports. I'm just going to go through a presentation. I want to thank Mr. Farrell. He's at an athletic director's conference. He wasn't able to be here and present tonight, but I said I would be happy to do so. This is a program I believe in strongly and fully. I've seen the benefits firsthand as a former special education teacher for many years and as an administrator who was involved with Unified Sports. And actually, I got to play on the basketball court against Andrew, who was here earlier, and of course he beat me pretty good in basketball. But a lot of fun and just great for everybody. So I just want to go through a quick presentation. It is on the new business agenda because it does represent some increases in coaching, and I'll explain how those expenses for the coaching are offset, or anticipated that they'll be offset. So on the next slide, Kevin, the CIAC Special Olympics Unified Sports Program provides a forum for positive social interaction between intellectually disabled and non-disabled students. So there are peer athletes and athletes with disabilities who work together, practice together, and then compete against other schools through the CIAC. If you haven't been to an event, they're exciting, they're a lot of fun, and it's a feel-good event for everyone, and a lot of lessons are learned there about more than just athletics. Participation in unified sports does build friendships, self-esteem, positive changes in attitude, behavior, and performance, and it's amazing to see those changes and how those relationships build over time. The Special Olympics Unified Sports Program helps foster an inclusive school community where the values of tolerance, patience, and sensitivity are cornerstones and so important. And they also help to foster an inclusive school community where and they also have a very strong need for our middle school and high school students. They meet a strong need throughout the school year of unified sports programs. So the breakdown of the positions would include, for the fall, 2 coaches, which would include soccer and kickball, and monthly CIAC challenges and activities. The winter, which was the only season we had a unified sports, kind of an internal club, which we had for basketball, would include basketball and bowling, and again, monthly CIAC challenges and activities with other teams. And then the spring would have 2 coaches, volleyball and track and field, and monthly CIAC challenges. These coaches would be different than the typical head coach, so it would be a much lower expense than our typical longer season coaches. So, as I said in the past, we've run a unified basketball program as an after-school activity that paid 3 stipends to 3 individuals who ran those programs. In the assessment of Mr. Farrell and Mrs. Kiley, and in my assessment, it's imperative to make it a sports program like over 90% of high schools in Connecticut. This will allow our students to have access to different programs the entire year. And if they don't happen to like basketball, they'll have opportunities they can participate in the other seasons, or they could do bowling in the winter season. And we have a great partner over at Lessard Lanes for that as well. Our students will have the opportunity to connect with other students across the state. It would be a minimum cost to the district. As I spoke with Mr. Farrell, we budget our athletic programs to include at least a varsity and JV coach for all of the sports, sometimes a freshman coach depending on the size of the programs. Oftentimes, you have to budget a year in advance, but sometimes the numbers don't play out so that we are able to field a JV team or a freshman team, if that might be the case. So those, the way Mr. Farrell explained it was that those funds for those sub-varsity positions that would not be used for those other sports would be available in the budget to cover the costs of the coaches needed for the unified sports program. So that's anticipated to be the case for the next, likely the next couple of years. If it ever happens so that this program would have to be covered through budget funds and we'd need to budget for it, it would be an expense of about $10,000 from what Mr. Farrell had shared with me. So I would just say that this is an item in the new business, and I fully support the benefits of a unified sports 3-season program, and I hope we are able to make it happen, and that'll be up to the board to vote on later. At this time, I'll take a break from talking for a bit, and I'll come back later, but I'd like to thank Mr. Dave Lewandowski, my assistant superintendent, who, in the process of preparing for our annual budget preparations, which we really start in the summertime, but in order to prepare for our needs as a district, our staffing, the number of teachers at each grade level, we do a pretty comprehensive class size and staffing report. I used to do it when I was assistant superintendent. Mr. Lewandowski has done, of course, an even better job. and he has a nice comprehensive presentation to share with you about our current outlook and our staffing, our class size, enrollment projections, and staffing. This helps us to prepare as we're building our budget. So, Mr. Lewandowski, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. LePage. So it's my pleasure to present the annual class size and staffing report. As Mr. LePage said, it's for planning for next school year, but also for budget season. And hopefully this report will allow you to see what our enrollment, staffing, and class sizes are projected to look like. Now, obviously, this is a projection based on our current numbers. Things do change, and as I go through the slides, you'll see how much things do shift here and there. But overall, it looks pretty good for us. Next slide. So this slide takes into account the trends and forecasts for live births in town and the impact on enrollment as these children become school-aged. One impact to enrollment forecast is new housing and new developments. We have to always keep our eye on that, and we do have some in town right now. If you look on that chart, that blue line, that delineates this current school year above the line and then next school year below the line. As you can see, that overall enrollment looks a little larger than last year. And the good thing is we did bounce back from that COVID year. I guess I'll call it the COVID year. It's still ongoing, but last year we had a real big impact because when we went out in 1920, there was still a lot of fear. We had some families that chose not to come to school. We had a lot of, obviously we were in that, some students were remote learning, some students were in-school learning, but we also did have students, families choose not to enroll students in pre-K. We had some kindergarten students stay home. We had some homeschooling. So we really were looking at how that would impact this school year, and we did bounce back pretty well and have a pretty average number of students if you look at the past years. So we're pretty much on target again. Next slide. So this just gives you a bar graph and shows our 2012 forecasting and how that shaped out. And Sam has done some work with this to adjust, because if you look way back at that first bar, it was kind of even. Then all of a sudden the forecast became much lower than what our actual numbers were. So there were some adjustments done. But as I said, we've been trending pretty well as the state has been losing. We've had districts around the state losing enrollment year to year, and we've held pretty steady. And it looks like we're going to continue that trend with next year's enrollment. This slide gives you a pretty comprehensive breakdown of the elementary schools and what they look like from current year with staffing and enrollment, and then projected next year's staffing and enrollment. And what we try to do is just carry through the numbers. So if this was the next school year right now, we take those second grade numbers, move them to third grade for next year. So it's just shifting the numbers from this year to where they would be next school year. But what we do for pre-K is we kind of hold at 120 students. We're trying for 8 classrooms again. We have 8 pre-kindergarten classrooms right now with approximately 15 in each. We're a little lower this year than the 120. I think we're at 114, but we're projecting for 120 next year in those 8 pre-kindergarten classes. And then for kindergarten, we do know we get a lot of registrations for kindergarten at the beginning, at that summertime. So what I did is took a 5-year average. So those kindergarten numbers for next school year, that's a 5-year average, going back 5 years and averaging our last 5 years. So in that, you could leave it, Kev. In that projection, we are moving 2 of those preschool classes that are at Wheeler currently back to Linden. So we'll have more of a display, not an even displacement, but we will have 2 Linden pre-K classrooms next year. All right, Kev. So these are the secondary numbers. Just like last slide, this projects middle and high school enrollments based off our current numbers with the anticipated difference in students per grade band and school total. These numbers as well are constantly changing with new registrations and withdrawals. We also, in middle school, we have that kind of wild card where 8th grade families do sometimes choose alternate schooling for their children, whether it's tech school for high school, whether it's a magnet school in Hartford or a correct magnet school. So there are some other choices in 8th grade that come up, and we do have some families choose some other options. So we try to understand that that may happen and some of these numbers may change for that 9th grade enrollment. But overall, it tends to even out. Next slide. So this is just a projected enrollment across the district. Now, that first slide, you saw a projected enrollment of, I think it was 20-something for total number of students. Here, it'll show 2205 as a projected number, but that's just taking, like I said, the current numbers that stand, and we know there's a lot of fluctuation. We do get a lot more registrations in. So that tends to run low when you're looking at that. That's just current numbers and moving them forward. But you can see that breaks down projected elementary numbers, middle and high. And that number, I don't know where that slide was different than what I have in the paper, because the elementary should be 1027, not 999. So I don't know how that looks like that was last year's slide in there. It says 2122 on top, so that's not correct. Let me see the next slide, Kev. Let me see if the next slide is back on track here. No, so that's last year's. Yeah. No, too late for that. Let me share this again, Kev, but I think, yeah, you just pulled up the wrong, right. No, they don't change that much day to day. Let me see the top of that, Kev. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so that was the difference. So 1027, yeah, 694, 2268 total. And we should be in the 2300 range next year. All right, thanks, Kev. Next slide. All right, so this slide projects the total number of open choice students that we have from Hartford, as well as our students attending schools elsewhere. So I talked about that choice students have. I mean, they have choice throughout their educational career, but when they reach 8th grade and their transition to high school, they have more choices with high schools. But this goes through and just shows how many kids, if we projected forward from this point, how many kids we'd have in district at each grade level for choice, and then our students at each grade level that have chosen alternate schooling options. So if you look at that, it's with the students coming in and students going out, we potentially could have a net loss of about 17 students, but that's without any pre-K open choice students added, and we do add some open choice pre-K students, and that's also without knowing definitely how many 8th graders are going to choose alternate options. We have 21 students in Hartford Magnets, and Hartford Magnets are a little different than the Creek Magnets. We don't pay for the Hartford Magnet School, but Creek we pay for tuition. What we're trying to do as one of our goals is to really market our district a little more so that we can really show parents and families and give them a more complete understanding of the educational experiences and opportunities we offer in Plainville, so that some of those students that are choosing alternate options for the reasons they're choosing them could really understand that we do have a very comprehensive offering right in district. But if you look at those numbers for students choosing out-of-district opportunities, it pretty much evens out with our choice numbers that we bring in. So it pretty much cancels each other out. Our district total right now says 109, that's anticipated for next year. This current number, I think, is 119 for open choice. We try to get about 120 each year. So it really does cancel each other out. But again, we'd like to keep our families in if we can, so we're working on that. But I will say that's a lot less than a lot of districts. A lot of districts, a lot of students choose alternate options, so we're doing pretty good in that category. Next slide. So this just shows you the certified elementary staff, certified teachers, grade level teachers right now currently at each grade level. And you can see there's 60 total across the 3 elementary schools. And it looks like with the numbers we have moving into 22-23, that will keep the same number of staff. If you go to the next slide, Kev. With our projected enrollment numbers, we anticipate needing the same number of staff as this current year, with adjustments made to the number of sections or classes at each grade level. And again, this is preliminary. Any change in student enrollment within specific grade levels or in specific schools may result in the need for either additional teachers or less teachers, depending on what happens. And again, when I show like how many teachers are at a grade level, we'll have conversations as the year comes to a close with the principals to see what makes most sense. So we might not have 3 teachers at a 4th grade level. It might move to a 2nd grade level. So we will shift where the teachers are based on the grade level sizes. And as I go in the future slides, you're going to see some of the class averages and what the grade levels look like for class average. So class size averages are projected to be similar as years past. There's really no big concerns about large class sizes on average. I mean, if you do look at like 1st grade right there, 19, that's a little big for 1st grade, 18.5 for kindergarten, that's a little big. But again, these are preliminary numbers. If this did play out like that, and that's what we had at the end of the year, then we'd be looking at taking, say, a 5th grade or 3rd grade teacher and swapping into, you know, one of those primary grades, because we want to keep the class sizes smaller at the primary levels, and we can afford for larger class sizes at the upper grade levels. Next slide. This just gives you a summary of the secondary teaching staff. And same thing with secondary, we try to keep the same number of staff. It doesn't look like we're having huge fluctuation in those areas. I think one of the earlier slides showed 37 more students at the high school, and I think it was 4 more students in the middle school, so it's pretty much holding steady. So our class, you know, our staff for those schools should remain constant. And if you look at class size averages, again, there's no immediate concerns. If you saw 30 up there or a 27, if you get into those numbers, we're really looking at big numbers. But here, even in the middle school with teaming, you're looking at numbers that are quite manageable and not any concern. So the class sizes in the specials, so those areas tend to be a little different than the core classes. In middle school with the specials, we want to give students as many opportunities outside of the core academics as they can have, so they do a rotation. We try to give them a lot of experiences. Sometimes you'll see classes being a little smaller, especially than the core classes where they're in those teams of 4 core classes for a team. But again, no numbers jump out. So this slide displays the sections running for core content areas along with average class sizes for the high school. Again, the classes vary in student enrollment due to level and whether the course is an elective or graduation requirement. And also, some students take more than one course within a department. That's why the number of students looks much larger than how many students we have in our school, because they're taking multiple classes in different content areas. But again, when you look at all the students that are taking those courses in those sections, the class sizes are manageable. And the elective courses, they're not shown, but they have unique scheduling considerations, parameters, safety requirements. We have a lot of our shop classes, our CTE classes, technology classes, where numbers would be a little smaller. Same with our AP, ECE, our dual enrollment classes. At times, those will run a little lower than your core classes, just because of the need to keep some of those classes running and give students those extra experiences. Now, this kind of speaks to what I was talking about, the fluctuation and sometimes not knowing what's going to happen day to day. It is a moving target. And if you look at this, these numbers were from the beginning of the summer until I think it was November 24th is when I took these numbers, the last count. So we had 367 students enrolled in that time, 145 students withdrew for a net gain of 222 students. We also had a high number of pre-K and kindergarten enrollments, which was great because that was our concern with the pandemic the year before, that, you know, we didn't know how many were coming back, or we did open up the universal pre-K without tuition. So we were hoping to fill those classes, and we did. So we're hoping again that we'll have 8 full classes for next year in pre-K. but that does show you that there's a lot of fluctuation, and that continued right up until November 24th. We had numbers that were changing. I had an elementary principal look at the numbers a day after I did them and said, oh, that's not the correct number. I said, I can't change day to day, or this report would never come out. So it's the best case scenario on that day. Next slide. All right, if you can jump past the next two, I'm going to go to questions in a minute, but your packet just has some of these extra slides in it that just has some more information for you. I'm not going to go through those, but it just gives you some other courses, class averages, and then at the end it gives you the specials, the unified arts and specialist areas in the elementary school. So just a little more information for you. But as I said, this is a best estimate based on projections forward, but also based on what our current numbers are. And if we moved all of our current students to the next grade, that's what it would look like now. And then trying to understand and give our best estimate on pre-K and kindergarten registrations for the year. And that's my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to attempt to answer those here, or I can go back and do research. I only think he added a couple years of projections at the end.
We're still showing them because he went out for this time period.
Yep.
But we're not using them. Everything Dave showed was based on our projections, the blue bars, not the red bars.
Yep.
We may have a service come in because of the middle school renovation. The reason we started doing it ourselves was at the time we needed it ASAP for the Wheeler renovation, and then it turned out we felt it was accurate and we just stuck with it. We didn't have a reason to update it. It's using the same methodology that Peter Prater or someone else would use. It uses persistency for each grade, so based on the history in each grade for number of students added or number of students subtracted, it applies that to future years. Problem is, with COVID, you really can't do that, so we left it the way it was 2 years ago, the way that history was, grade by grade. And like Dave says, it's not an exact science. It's mathematical, but doesn't take into account a lot of factors that will probably impact our enrollment.
I think the positive thing is that it really has, if you looked over the years with the actual, stayed pretty consistent in that 2,300 range there, so. Yes.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Mhm.
When you say that parents are looking at the 8th grade level to make different decisions, what would you, and we want to be competitive to keep our families, what would you say the number one or top 3 reasons why people are moving out of district?
So one is the comprehensive tech schools. So if they're looking at a career and they really want that career, so they're actually doing career work in school, that's definitely one option. You can see from the tech schools, there were a variety of tech schools that they were choosing. So that would be one of the reasons. I think that's the biggest reason. I couldn't tell you. I mean, we've talked about surveying parents that are leaving to see why are you making that choice? The magnets, they advertise very well. There's a lot of money that goes into their advertising, so sometimes they advertise things that I think we offer, but parents might not understand that we offer. So they see that shiny thing and it looks great with a magnet school, and it's just another opportunity. So I think one of our big goals is to really do a little better job of marketing all the great and wonderful things, because we do some very unique things in our schools that I'm not sure that everyone sees or understands that we have that experience for their kids. With a tech school, we can never do exactly what a tech school does, but I think the continuum that we're creating from elementary to middle to high school with our college and career readiness, I think we can show that we can give you those career experiences in high school, and give you that mix of college and career readiness in an interest that you have, but also help them understand that they're going to have that continuum from elementary to middle to high school. It's going to build upon their experience, and if they leave or break that continuum, they're missing out on what we have. So we might have some students that go and choose a middle school and come back for high school, and now you have that broken experience where you were using their curriculum. It wasn't very aligned with what we're doing. So we're hoping that that's going to make a difference with some of our parents. But like I said, it's not I mean, we look at 120, it seems like a lot of parents, but it's actually not a lot of families choosing outside schooling, but we'd like to keep all of them in if we could.
Thank you. And I do have one more question, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
When you say when the teachers shift based on enrollment need, just for my education, what does that process look like for a teacher? Do you ask, is there someone who would like to move from 3 to 5? And how do we do that in a way that keeps morale high and it's the right movement?
Yeah, lots of conversation, lots of prep work. So we don't take it lightly. It's in the contract that we have to do that before the school year ends, before, I think it's before summer starts, that we have to, if we're changing grade levels. If it's not an emergency.
Normally, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless we have a large registration over the summer, something like that,
Yep.
we have to make a late change, but
I
we
think-
give much notice, and we try to align it to their strengths and their certifications. Some have different certification levels. Some have experience at a different grade level, and then they may have had to move for whatever reason, but they wanted to get back to that grade. So we work with the principals who know their staff really well, and if there's a staff member that's been saying, well, I'd really like to get back to like 3rd grade, we try to honor that if we can. Sometimes it's a directive. We need you here. Your strengths are here. This is where you're good. This is where you'd be best served, meeting the needs of the kids. So it kind of varies, but we try to keep morale as high as we can while meeting the needs of the kids. Good question.
Yeah.
I had one question, if I may. Addressing the class sizes of the pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade, increasing in that shift, at what point does the district look at hiring another educator to fill that role? I mean, is that based on the number of total students enrolled, or I just was wondering how that would be evaluated.
At those youngest grades where we really need kids learning to read, so they're reading at grade level by grade 3, we really make sure the class size remains small. So at pre-K, 15 is pretty much the cap. We try to keep as close to 15 as you can with kindergarten. We go up to probably 17, 18 at times. Sometimes even a little more. We've been up to 20. But that's really hard, and the more kids you have in a room, sometimes you need more paraprofessional support, things like that. We did add paraprofessionals at each of the kindergarten classes this year. We have support at the pre-K as well. So we really look at the class sizes, making sure we maintain a level that those kids are getting their needs met when they need extra help and support. So, good questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Dave? And then I'll resume the rest of my report. And I have a few more things. I get to share all the less glamorous but important things about some related to school safety. So thank you, Mr. Lewandowski.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comprehensive report. I know it takes a lot of time to put that together. Just some general updates regarding our schools. So I know everyone's aware of the recent uptick in school violence and school threats. Obviously, Chairwoman Consalvo mentioning Newtown. I can't believe how long ago that's been now, but it feels like yesterday. And then just in Michigan, and we're always conscious and aware of of school violence and potential violence and threats. We have to prepare for that, and we do so every year. We submit a school safety plan for each school and for the district to the Department of Homeland Security every year. It's a very comprehensive report. We don't share all the details of that report with the public, but we do get insight from staff, families, and of course our administrative team in putting together that report. It includes every aspect of mitigation that you would imagine would have to go into a plan like that, along with our technology. We've really bolstered our technology, our devices and our tracking and our ability to communicate during an incident, our attendance tracking, things of that nature. So I guess my point is that we are as prepared as we can be with our training and our professional development and our technology access in our infrastructure that you hear about a lot in our capital budget plan with security improvements. We're always continually improving that. As you know, if you were here a few years ago, the high school entryway was right there and there was no secure vestibule. You walked in and had to go across the hallway to get into the office. That's no longer the case here. So, and we have an SRO at the middle school and at the high school who are there full time. So a lot goes into that. I guess what I'd like to say though is that I will be sending a message out to all the families tomorrow and to all the students, especially in the secondary students, about making any kind of threats. They've been plaguing some other districts. Our neighbor in Farmington having a lot of issues with that lately. There's I believe a public forum tonight. And you know, there's some pretty disturbing things that are happening out there. So I need our students to realize that any threat is not a practical joke or a prank, and it wouldn't be taken that way. It would be taken as a very serious legal and school discipline situation. So you know, our kids are generally very good, and you know, I'm proud of everything they do. Sometimes they do things that they may regret later. So I'm just going to send out a reminder about the seriousness of what's happening and being very cautious about actions that would make others feel unsafe. While I'm on the topic of safety, as the board members are aware, and our council chair and others, and anyone who's watched some of the news, but we've had a number of students hit by vehicles in town, and I've been in town for 12 years now, and it's the most I've ever seen. I'm not exactly sure what one specific cause, but it's concerning. We've had four students hit by vehicles since the start of school, one on a bicycle and three on foot, and just very fortunate that, generally speaking, minor injuries, no major, or I would say there's some significant injuries with a broken bone or so, but very fortunate. We've had two at the same location at the crosswalk here. After the first one, I worked with Mr. Lee and Chief Peterson on initially just bolstering extra police patrol of that area and support. Mr. Lee reached out to the State Department of Transportation to look at different options. I know that I don't patrol the social media, but I know that some were suggesting just shutting that crosswalk. Others, I received lots of emails with suggestions. Others were saying that we need to install, more flashers and flashing lights and preventative, things for visibility. So Mr. Lee and I have spoken a few times. Interim Chief Peterson and I have spoken a number of times. I know Mr. Lee is pursuing the option of increasing the safety at that area. There were only, well, I shouldn't say only, there were 2 of the 4 accidents at that crosswalk. There was one just the other day from just another situation on Whiting Street, and then one on, I believe it was Main Street, on a bicycle. But it's scary. I'm glad all the kids are going to be okay, but we're doing what we can to improve the safety. Part of that's going to be just reminding students about pedestrian safety. So I'm going to be working on a public service announcement contest at each of the levels, elementary, middle, and high school, where the students come up with a campaign and some hopefully multimedia presentation that we can share with all the students about just some simple reminders. You know, I think sometimes we just get so wrapped up in our iPhones and what's going on the phone, and we're a little too trusting that because you're walking in a crosswalk or just crossing the street, sometimes not even in a crosswalk, that people will see you and they'll stop. But unfortunately, a lot of drivers are doing the same thing in their cars, checking their iPhone, which is really scary. And sometimes it's you know, an innocent accident. Accidents happen, and nobody wants anyone else to get hurt. So we're going to do what we can to work with the kids to come up with some sensible reminders on just pedestrian safety, because it's really concerning to me that we've had that many already. Just quickly, getting off the topic of safety for a minute, I'll go back to it in a second. Wheeler project closed out. It's on hold for now. We have the Capital Building Projects Committee tomorrow night, and looking for final approval of expenditures from that committee, which is part of the process. And hopefully we'll be bringing that to the Board of Education in January. Mr. Adlerstein, after the Board of Education, it then goes to the Town Council for final approval before submission to the state. Is that, if I have that correct? I believe so. Just making sure I have the process. A lot of steps involved, but the ultimate goal of that is to close out the Wheeler project, which it's a beautiful school. It came out great. And we have over $3 million that are, once that's all closed out and submitted to the state, that will be coming back to Plainville as well. So we're looking forward to that, because we did, as I said in a prior meeting, we met the student increase obligation up to 352 students. We ended up with 354 at the time it was required of October 1st of this year. So a lot of work went into that, but we're in a good place. So that's just an update on the closeout. Just a couple more things from me, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sam I'm going to ask you to help us go through the capital budget, Sam, if you don't mind, because I want to hear you. You're good at explaining all that, and we'll kind of work on that together, as we always do. But the just COVID status, I know it's of concern to everyone with the rising cases, and I've sent out a lot of information about COVID, probably more than anyone wants to see on a weekly basis, or I try to do it weekly as much as I can, sometimes more. But since November 23rd, we've had 79 cases of COVID reported in our town. As Council Chair Puglisi mentioned, that's the case around the town, around the state. Cases are high. If you look at the town map of the high COVID rates, the state's pretty much all red. There's a couple tiny little dots of less than red. Red's the high transmission rate. Number of reasons for that: holiday gatherings, Delta variant. Now the Omicron variant's moved into the state, but my understanding hasn't really had an impact yet. So you know, it depends what you listen to. I listen to the health department and you know, the state officials for my guidance. That's who I have to turn to, and we do our very best to keep everyone safe. Our school transmission has happened. It's still very low, relatively speaking, to the 167 student cases this year that have been reported to the schools. You know, it's been a handful, a little more than a handful, but I'd say under 10 that are probable school spread. You know, and as you know, we've been allowed to decrease some of the mitigation, like the spacing, you know, proximity in the classroom setting, and allowed to do some other things this year that we weren't allowed to do last year. So school spread remains a concern and something we're vigilant about, but it's not really. It's when people are unmasked in social settings, for the most part, that it's spreading quite a bit. Definitely spreading through households once someone has it. So we've had 24 staff members who have gotten it since the late summer, 38 last year, and students last year was 170. About 172. So we're close to last year's numbers, and we're in, you know, December 13th. So the impact of those numbers is less than it was initially, with so many, you know, a lot more people being vaccinated and having the booster shot. So the impact of the illness has been less than, fortunately, for our residents. We're going to be hosting, Southington's going to be hosting clinics, so we share the same health director, so they're hosting a clinic in a town location. I think I'll send the dates out to everyone so you can register if you'd like to. And that's for all age groups and children, down to age 5 and up. So that will be, I'll send the dates out, but I think it's January 9th and 13th. I'll double check it. And we're also looking at the possibility of hosting one here, possibly at our middle school as a different location. But I'm going to be sending out a survey this week to our families to see how much of an interest there is. I've hosted with our team and with Griffin Health a clinic for staff on the Monday after it became available to all of our staff. We hosted our first clinic, but way back in March, along with the second dose later in March. When it became available to 16 to 18-year-olds, we hosted a clinic here at the high school, and then the follow-up dose 3 weeks later. And then we hosted a clinic for the 12 to 15-year-olds, well, 12 and up, actually, anybody, and members of the staff members' families, things like that. So we've hosted 3 full sets of clinics here within our schools and vaccinated a large number of people who wanted to be vaccinated. We had held off on the youth vaccine clinics because at the time when they became available, the guidance had been, well, that pediatricians will be available in pharmacies, and it might be better for those younger children to have that direct support from someone they're familiar with. A clinic can be somewhat intimidating, even though we made it, with music and, therapy dogs. We kind of had everything going on here. It was a pretty nice clinic for all of them, but we also had a booster clinic for our staff recently. So a lot of clinics, a lot of, when I was in my superintendent program, I didn't know I'd be an associate health director or whatever you want to call me, but I pretty much know too much medical terminology, and I just do my best working with we have an amazing team. I have to thank Julie Simard and Stacy Buden and all of our school nurses and our principals, our administrators. I mean, it's a 24/7. It's a 24/7 obligation. You get a case that comes in, you have to contact, trace it, notify, and tell everyone what they qualify for, whether it's screen and stay or quarantine or isolation, how many days, what it means for school, what it means for sports, what it means for school activities, out-of-school activities. It's enough to make your head spin. So I know I thank the public for their patience. It's frustrating. There's been some really angry calls and emails, and there have been some very appreciative calls and emails, and I understand all of them. It's a really difficult time to navigate public education. But I couldn't be more proud of our team and the work that they're doing, and I couldn't do it without, a few key individuals. Julie Smart's probably number 1 on my list, along with Stacy Buden. Just really outstanding. And always pleasant, no matter what time of day I call her or what the problem is. So I gave them, they were Portrait Pioneer winners last year. I could probably nominate them each month. But so anyway, I just want to thank them, and we'll continue to fight the good fight and keep everyone as safe as we possibly can while maintaining as much normalcy, celebrations. It was so nice to hear the kids singing tonight. They were spaced out. They had masks on. There's going to be a concert next week, two nights, spread out over 2 nights. But it was just nice to hear some beautiful voices to cheer us up around the holiday season. And my last quick thing is about the board development work that we've been doing as we've had new board members join us. And, there's a lot of learning being a member of a board of education. The ongoing joke is like, how hard could it be? It's only 10 meetings a year, and like an hour and a half with Mr. LePage. It's 3 hours, but, because he talks so much. But it's a ton of work. It can be thankless, it can be critical, it can be really difficult, it can be contentious at times. But, our goal is to build capacity and is to have coherence and to work together as professionals toward the best interests of the district and the kids. And, I'm proud of the board we have, and I think we're going to work really well together. I think there's learning that has to happen on all of our accounts. So, we did some research and planned a session we had our Facilities and Finance Subcommittee to prepare for the capital budget you're going to hear about in a second. But then on a separate night, on December 2nd, we had a board onboarding meeting and went through about 35 pages of the CABE handbook on, roles and responsibilities and kind of obligations of a board member, a board chair and a board member. And we talked about that, and we did some breakout groups. We talked about bylaws and code of ethics and things of that nature that we're going to be reviewing and having subsequent meetings, and also involving outside experts to help with professional development for our Board of Ed. So I appreciate the board's involvement in that process and their willingness and openness to that process. Sam's reached out to Nick Caruso from CAVE about coming in and doing some discussion with our board and considering the Lighthouse project, Lighthouse program. It's a comprehensive program. It's an extensive training program that has really gotten rave reviews for its effectiveness in building Board of Ed capacity. So we'll learn more about that in the near future. We have a lot coming up with board meetings and budget meetings, and it's really important that we all, not that we all agree, because we probably won't. I can't even get everyone to agree in my own house. So having 9 different individuals on very important topics agree on everything is not going to happen, but to have that capacity and that coherence where we can come to decisions and move important decisions forward for our district is going to be critical. So that being said, we'll transition now to our capital budget presentation that will be voted on later tonight, as this is really this is our best estimate, and based on conversations with our facilities director, Steve Bussell, and with Kevin Ross, our IT director, who happens to be in the back of the room. I'll have to say nice things about him, but they both put a significant amount of work into really assessing what our needs are for the district, not just for this coming budget year, but over 5 years and beyond, but they plan out 5 years, and really try to assess what we're going to need to meet those needs for the district over the next 5 years. Kevin's technology replacement cycle is incredibly important for maintaining the high level technology that we need across the entire district, not just for our schools, but Kevin does that for the police department, the library, the town municipal center, the senior center, and all the schools. So Steve does all the facilities planning for all of our needs, and I hate to say it because I don't want to make his head grow any bigger, but Steve, when we have meetings with renovation committees and engineering companies and architects, Steve's looked to as an expert. So we have a strong expert on our staff. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you to take us through that's kind of the overview of how we build our capital budget, and it just starts here with the board putting it forward as our capital budget, and then there's a lot of steps before it is approved eventually.
Yes.
That's last year. No, I'm just kidding, Kevin. He only did that once.
Oh, wait, yeah, wrong year.
You're good.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you go to the next one, Kevin? So we just have a few slides, and there's a lot of numbers on here, but really it's just the bottom 6 that are this year. We wanted you to see the comparison process and the comparison years, especially folks who are on the board, so you can just get a sense of what happens. We're at the second step of the capital process. The first step was a subcommittee meeting on November 17th. So you've already seen the detail of both the technology proposal and the facilities proposal. We're not going to go through it line by line again like we did a few weeks ago. What we're going to go through tonight is just the changes, just the updates from what you saw a few weeks ago. And it went down. The proposal that you saw a few weeks ago was $43,000 higher. There are 2 changes. I'm going to highlight those 2 changes. We could go back and talk about any items you want, but I don't plan to make you sit through that again since we already went through it once. Next slide, Kevin. So this is the facilities. A lot of detail on this slide. I just really wanted to point out the highlighted row in the middle. It was determined that the kitchen grinder pump replacement, we really couldn't wait, because if it went down, that kitchen would be down for 2 to 3 months in the middle of the school year. And so we determined that it doesn't make sense to wait for the capital cycle. We're going to do that this year. We'll do it out of either ESSER funds or jockeying around some other projects if there's some favorable projects this year that we can use and move funds into this. So it'll be a combination of things, but we really couldn't wait. So that comes off this list, that's $25,000 off this list. Again, I'm not going to go through each item because we already did that, but we can come back if you want. Next slide, Kevin. This is the technology proposal you saw a few weeks ago, and I just want to talk about the change in the middle of that slide that's highlighted in yellow. The CAD lab proposal doesn't change, but the funding for the CAD lab proposal changes. We have the opportunity for 50% of that to be funded from the adult education grant. In fact, I think we talked about that a few weeks ago, but we had the full number on the schedule, so we just adjusted the schedule. So only 50% of that CAD lab, the amount that would be funded from the capital plan is in this proposal now, and the other 50% has been written into an adult education grant. So those two changes together add up to $43,000. Other than that, this is what you saw a few weeks ago. Next slide, Kevin. This is what it looks like. Sorry, it's tiny, but it's the column in yellow is the proposal for the 22-23 school year. And then we go out 5 years, so there's 4 more years beyond that, and you can see the additional years. Yeah, next slide, Kevin. And just, yeah, so this is just showing that this is where we talk about it. Later in your meeting, under number 9 is when we vote on it. And let me just reiterate what happens. So you're approving to move this forward in the process. Nothing gets spent. It goes forward in the process. Next thing that happens is the town manager reviews this capital proposal along with capital proposals from all other departments, makes a proposal to the town council. That usually happens right at the beginning of March. Town council deliberates, makes their adjustments, may come back to us and ask some questions, and that combined proposal, adjusted proposal, is what goes into the town budget that eventually goes to referendum. So this is step 2 of a 5-step process. Questions, comments?
Hi, I have a question. I noticed on the technology capital proposal for the Chromebook grades 6, 9, and elementary, it says for grades 1, 5, and 9, moving us for a 4-year replacement cycle. I thought there was Chromebooks that were presented or proposed to be for kindergarten at one point.
Does a grant we receive, or we received it's called Emergency Communication Fund, and we received the funding, we applied for it in the fall, we received it, we actually received the devices today.
So we are getting Chromebooks for kindergarten grades?
They're ones that are going to be available in the classroom that'll last them the next 4 years.
Okay.
So
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, those won't travel with the students to the next grade. They'll stay in kindergarten for use by the kindergartners that come into that program as a classroom resource, but not an individual student, one-to-one device to go home with them.
Yeah, because that was the one I had concerns because of the age of the child and the use of a Chromebook at that young age, but.
They're used on a pretty limited basis. It's not like they sit at the computer all day. It's just for certain activities that would
Okay.
lend themselves well. That's a valid point. We don't want them on the computer as much. There's a lot more interaction with peers and with the teacher at that level.
Especially since the class size is kind of creeping up a little bit too, so,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good question.
And Kevin, I think it says 6, 9 elementary on one side of this slide, and then 1, 5, 9 on the other side. It's 1, 5, 9 in this replacement cycle, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions about any items on my lengthy superintendent's report? If you have anything else, you can always send me an email, but if there's any questions. Otherwise, my superintendent's update report is complete.
I just have a quick question, please.
Yes.
I was just curious if, within the Department of Health, if there's been any discussion on, I know that most of the state is red right now, but other districts around us are doing, a little bit better in the schools. generally districts that have a higher vaccination rate than Plainville does. So those seem to coincide. I was just wondering if the Department of Health, or if you were looking at any mitigating strategies, especially going into the winter months where the kids can't go outside and they're closer together, and our recent uptick. Were we going to look at, less spacing or reducing cafeteria time? I know some districts are sending breakfast home now, and there's a few different things going on, so I was just curious what we were looking at doing.
Yeah, I have my meeting with the local health director tomorrow. The state health department canceled tomorrow's meeting. Our next meeting's next Tuesday. But, the directive has been to follow, the spacing to the degree possible. In the classroom, it's 3 feet still. I did ask our band and chorus to spread out even more so for rehearsals. We were following national guidelines, and they've been practicing for the upcoming concerts. We're looking at that, and it'll be a topic of discussion with our local health department tomorrow. Given the plan that we have in place that was approved for that previously, I just want to make sure we're still okay with that. I continue to urge families to consider, in consultation with their physician, their pediatrician, to consider the vaccine. It's not mandated at this time, as one of the mandated vaccines. So we're doing our best to encourage that, and hopefully host a clinic if needed, if the demand is there. But we continue to do the best we can under, the directive is to keep kids in school to the degree possible. I'm not sure if there are any other things you had in mind. I'm sorry, you might have said one other thing that
I was just wondering if we were looking at mitigation strategies, especially with, spacing, screen and stay, the increase in even the probable school spread. And like I said, winter coming up is always, tough. It's nice when they can spread out and eat lunch outside, but, less and less that's going to be happening. So
Yeah, I'm
I
going to
just
work with
really
our
want our kids
principals.
to be able to stay in school. And
Right. I'm going to work with our principals, see if there's any way to spread out possibly more in the cafeterias. Right now, I think we pretty much have it maximized. And the only incidents where there has been likely spread, of course, you never know what's happening with sleepover parties and other outside activities, but where there's been likely spread has been when they've been unmasked and eating, or there's been, I believe, one in a performing arts situation where it could have happened there, band or chorus. So we'll
Also,
continue to
only one was-
evaluate it and just do whatever we possibly can while keeping everyone in school.
so the other probable school spread, those weren't in eating situations? Those were just in classes?
No, eating, cafeteria, and then,
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
they
that's
were
what,
all- okay.
that's what I meant to say. If I didn't say that, I apologize. Yeah, when eating with masks off. Typically, it's when masks are off.
Got
Yeah.
it. Yep.
Steve, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have there been many parents that are raising the concern of the COVID hike, where they're concerned about their children being in school as opposed to the homeschooling again?
I've had a few emails today, some on Friday when I sent my update about the case, the case numbers. Not a large number, but people that I respect, and we want to do the best we can for kids. It's an incredibly challenging time. There's no option for remote learning and it's not even remote learning. If you have to stay home for COVID, for isolation or quarantine, you can live stream or have a partial experience, but it's not the same. So we're trying to keep kids in school as much as we can while, not having an outbreak. So it's always a challenge. We monitor it pretty much every minute of the day. But yes, I've had both extremes. I've had people refer to it as a cold or the flu, and let's just move on. And I've had others say, what are we doing? Everybody should be home. So and then a whole lot of people in between. So I have to keep following the guidance that we're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like Ms. Martinez mentioned, we meet with our administrators every week, talk about ways we can possibly reduce spread, through, I'll of course bring up, the breakfast ideas. I'll find out how close they actually are at breakfast, or if we can spread them out more at breakfast. Not as many kids eat breakfast as they do lunch, but So I think that may be less of an issue in some schools than others, but we'll look at every possible way we can to keep kids safe, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like our student representative's here. You wanna-
I had a question.
Oh, I'm
For-
sorry, yep.
Just a couple of things. When we were last year and everybody was being vigilant with COVID and it was new, one of the best ways to prevent the spread of any cold is hand washing. Maybe a campaign around the schools just to remind kids about basic hand washing, teachers, everybody, would be good. Because we all know that the children, as much as we wear the masks and as much as they play with them, their hands go in their face, they go on the floor, they fall off. But just getting mindful about washing your hands. I know in some of the preschool settings, there's hand washing places right in the class, which is convenient, but it's harder to get the kids to regularly wash their hands in the high schools because there aren't as many places to physically go in and wash your hands. But especially getting used to washing your hands before and after you eat, I think kids in the high school level get out of that habit of doing that, and that might help. The other thing I was wondering about, you guys utilize now a green cleaner or a different kind of cleaning agent than you did last year. Is that something, or was that something that you talked about at the beginning? Did you change any cleaning products from last year to this year?
No, the guidance is calling for typical disinfecting and sanitizing as they would normally do. And
Because I thought the sanitation of the tables was a little different from last year to this year when they changed over. So perhaps instead of changing things with the children and affecting the children's schedules, maybe cleansing the tables and cleansing where kids touch a little bit more would help with having kids inside. Just, that's just thoughts. And then finally, you had 24 staff members that had been affected by COVID. Do you know how many of these staff members, or can you get back to me perhaps on how many were vaccinated, like the percentage? I think that would be good to look at.
yeah,
But,
I could tell you that. And-
That would be great, so.
And, so catching it and then ending up in the hospital or potentially worse, or, that's what we really look at. So it's important to note that as well. So it's about, just telling you from a quick glance, it's about 60%, 65% were not vaccinated.
Okay,
So about 35% were.
so that's good to know. I appreciate your help, thank you.
Sure.
I don't want to, I know we're here later, but you don't have to answer me now, but on this health information, when we're looking at benchmarking everything on cases, are we getting any additional drill down information on how many of those cases were symptomatic? Because we know children without underlying medical conditions usually fare pretty well thus far. So I'm just curious to know, when we look at the number of cases and we're looking at spikes, if we're looking at some of the root underneath, especially with the screen and stay. And one of the questions that I wanted to look at too is with the screen and stay program. So if you're not vaccinated, those kids need to go, aren't able to participate. Are we looking at the data of, it seems to be 65%, it seems to be that vaccinated versus unvaccinated, the spreading is pretty comparable at the end of the day. I guess what I'm looking for is, are we drilling down on the cases and looking at how many of these kids were sick versus tested positive for COVID?
For us,
Yes, do we get that information, or is it just cases?
our nurses get all that information.
Good.
So we do, but as far as how we have to address it as a school, it doesn't change anything as far as the contact tracing. And
Right.
if they have it, we have to follow all the guidelines for someone who's positive. I understand where that would be an interesting data point, but when it comes down to all the mitigation measures, we have to follow the same guidelines, whether they're asymptomatic and positive, or if they're symptomatic and really sick. So there's still the timeline. We have to wait before they can return. We still have to contact trace for anyone that they were close contact with, and then follow either screen and stay, quarantine, or for close contacts.
I figured as much. I was just curious to know if that was just information that we had, access to, because it sounds like we're going to be reevaluating this at the state level soon. And I was just curious if we were getting underneath the numbers when we make decisions to move forward, or if you were getting that information. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just going back to the surface areas, they really minimized the importance of cleaning surface areas. Last year it was cleaning everything. We weren't sharing any like balls out of recess. We had a set for each class. We wiped them down, we were spraying teachers were spraying the desk down, the kids were wiping it and throwing it away and washing their hands. So the health department has really minimized the likelihood of catching it from contact from surface areas. So just getting back to that point, I'm sorry, I should have said that before, but that's one of the reasons we've changed that process. And they still don't believe it's coming from that. It's coming from more with masks off, respiration from talking, droplets in the air, and direct contact in that way within a distance. Yes, Mr. Adler.
This is a district for normal flu season. We're very mindful of surface areas. What you're talking about, I think we do anyway every winter. And
yeah, we do reinforce the hand washing. Probably not as much at the high school. In their health classes, I think they do. I'm not sure how much it happens in every class, but you'd be surprised how many kids are health conscious and antibacterial, and they bring it with them in their purse, or we have it in the schools as well. But they hopefully learn good habits at the younger ages and carry those forward. But it's never a bad thing to wash your hands. I wash mine a lot. So, thank you. All good questions. All set? Anybody else? Okay. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Board subcommittee reports. We'll start with the student representatives.
So, as of late, student discussion has focused on school-related issues, holiday plans, and COVID-related questions and concerns. This included topics regarding COVID-19 boosters, rising cases during the holiday season, and the allowance of 3-foot band and choral performances for the upcoming winter concerts next week. Of course, students have come to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions of our current educational system and society overall. We are well equipped and mentally prepared to take on the challenges the next few weeks may pose. Students continue to engage in hour-long social-emotional lessons during Wednesday forum days, which were expanded to academic departments offering discussions about emotions and how we react to our actions. Our most recent lesson was about identifying others' emotions and how to react to them. In addition to this program is Devil's Advocate, where several PHS seniors go to freshman homerooms and teach the given SEL lesson. And now I'll pass it to my co-student liaison, Isabella Grasso.
So looking back, we had a successful powder puff game arranged by class officers on November 3rd, as well as a successful outdoor class competition arranged by student council and class officers. Saturday and Sunday, December 4th and 5th, the PHS Theater Unlimited Club held their fall play in the auditorium, directed by Mr. Ricardo and the Tech program. It was held Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 12, sorry. Juniors and seniors of the PHS Chamber Choir performed holiday carols at Hillstead Museum in Farmington on Saturday, December 4th. And then last week, December 7th, the PSAT and SQT scores were posted on College Board, the student score website. Currently, National Honor Societies continue to fundraise money for their field trips and induction costs. For example, the Italian National Honor Society is having a bottle and can collection to raise money for their trip to Boston sometime in 2022. Winter sports are starting up again this year. Girls basketball, for example, has started their tryouts and practices. The Science National Honor Society and Future Business Leaders of America Club are holding toy drives this month for Connecticut Children's Medical Center and Toys for Tots. Looking ahead, the PHS Music Department will be holding the winter concerts on Tuesday, December 21st and Wednesday, December 22nd. The Tuesday concert will be the Chamber choir, evening choir, concert choir, and jazz band, while the Wednesday concert will be the concert band. Holiday recess is December 24th to January 3rd, with a half-day on Tuesday the 24th. For ECE half-year classes, teachers and students are preparing for their final exams, which will be done sometime before the semester is over in January. And that concludes the student perspective.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Just want to welcome Isabel. I think it's your first meeting, right?
Yes.
All right, I was hoping I didn't miss your first one, but thank you for joining us. So you are a junior,
I am a junior, yes.
and you'll be carrying on the excellent tradition that Garrett has upheld as
Yes,
a
I will.
senior and cross-training, and we'll select another junior when Garrett goes on to pursue his music educator training. So he wants me to hire him in a few years, right, Garrett?
All right.
And well, based on tonight's performance, I call that a wonderful performance evaluation as part of your interview. So
Absolutely.
that was outstanding. All right, thank you.
Next, we'll get to the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee report. Foster?
Yes, the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee met on Wednesday, November 17th at room 412 in this building. First thing we did was to organize the subcommittee. I'll be remaining as chair, and Cassandra and Rachel will be joining on that subcommittee as well. We also did a fairly extensive review of the COVID expenditures so far, looking both at the staff that have been hired and also the staff that is the positions already posted. And most of these are positions that are going to have term limits on them, so that they will not be ongoing positions to accommodate when the COVID and research relief funding ceases. There are also about 70 of the ESSER projects that are currently in some form of activity. We also reviewed the status of the Wheeler School, noting that we had met the requirement, and we also looked at moving the financing of that forward to the town so that the final expenditures can be obtained from the state to get the $3 million back to the town of Plainville. As we have gone over just prior to this, in our meeting tonight, we reviewed the capital budget, which has now been reduced from the $43,000 from the capital funding that we had reviewed and are suggesting that we approve tonight to move forward in the second step of the 5-step process, as Sam pointed out. We also went over some very basic work on the operating budget for 22-23. And in that light, we also did approve a draft calendar for that process, which, as the superintendent pointed out, starts in August and ends pretty much in May. It's almost an ongoing process. So that is just in a quick nutshell of the results of the Finance Facilities Subcommittee meeting. Anyone have any questions? We'll try and gladly answer them.
Okay,
I guess not.
no questions. Crystal, Policy Subcommittee report?
We haven't met since our last meeting. We met in October.
Okay. We have the Curriculum Subcommittee report. Rebecca?
There was no meeting since our last Board of Ed meeting.
Oh, okay. Then we have the Outreach Subcommittee report. Anything? No? Nothing, okay. Foster, the high school PAC liaison?
Yeah, the PAC meeting, unfortunately, the PAC meeting was at the same time as the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee
Oh,
meeting.
right.
But I did get a report back from Karen that the meeting was rather brief. It was a Zoom meeting, and they did go over the results of the pie and cookies sale that they did conduct. It was very successful and did provide the funding for at least 2 scholarships, and they'll be moving out with some additional funding and meetings. Their next meeting will be a Zoom meeting. It's going to be on January 12th, and it will be a Zoom meeting.
Thank you. Taflon School, PTO, Rebecca?
Yes, Toflan PTO met on November 17th. They went over their Buy a Box fundraiser, which was extremely successful, and they were also able to give away some really neat prizes. One child, Eve Maynard, won a Nintendo Switch, and Ms. Caldwell's class was able to, they won some recess equipment and an ice cream party. And they are still tallying what was made on that based on what, sending out expenditure. So we'll hear the final tally on that at the next meeting. They're still stocking the staff lounge, which they've been doing an excellent job with. People are able to provide the staff with snacks and things of that nature. You talked about the Trail of Treats, that they did have it on November 6th. They had raffles and games and prizes, and teachers helped put that on, and volunteers. And that went over really well, and the kids had a great time. They had their book fair during conferences, and they were able to buy over 70 books for the next book fair, and they were also able to make sure that they were able to help several children get a book. If children were all off by a little bit of money, they were able to add in and make sure that the child was able to get something. And they're continuing still with their Script Zone, Amazon Smiles, Box Tops grocery cards, Bay State Tiles, and Coca-Cola Give. And their next meeting will be in December.
In December? Yep. Okay. End of the month?
December 15th.
Oh, pretty soon, okay. Next, we have Linden Street School, Cassandra.
Yes, the Linden Street School, since we last met, they met on November 8th and December 8th. So on November, I hadn't gotten a chance to report, but Mr. Wallowitz took the PTO around the building. They're doing with the COVID recovery money, the little bit of rebranding of the building. It was great to see the walk through the building and talk with the parents and Mr. Wallowitz and get an idea of what the children were thinking about and the teachers were thinking about for positive messaging throughout. And it was a great way, I thought, too, of utilizing the funds. So there was the parents' perspective, which a lot of the parents were able to give suggestions. It was really nice to see. That was one thing. I wanted to mention that they did the Butter Bread fundraiser, and they had the holiday shop wrapping party was going to be part of their last PTO meeting on the 8th. However, the holiday wrapping was very extensive. So for that holiday shop they're doing, so there wasn't too much of an organized meeting that took place that evening. So I got to get in touch with Nicole. We were doing a lot of wrapping, but that's this week, and it's a great event that the kids get the chance to shop for their families, and they really enjoy going through and making their list. So that's what they'll be doing.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Plainville Middle School, Crystal.
The MSP PTC met briefly on Tuesday, November 16th. They meet in person and virtual, so if parents can't make it, they do it virtual also. They had a great bingo night on November 17th. They also had a successful paint night on December 1st. Let's see. They sold, from Carabin Farms, they sold wreaths, and I believe poinsettias also, I believe. And they did that fundraiser. And they're looking forward to a lot of cool things in the spring. They meet again tomorrow night for a brief working meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Great, thank you. Wheeler School, Rachel.
Sorry. Wheeler PTO last met on November 18th. They are not having a December meeting, but to report that their book fair in November was a huge success. They're excited to use e-wallets for the first time. where the students are able to, it sounds like it's non-cashless. There was a learning curve, but it sounds like it worked out really well, and the teachers are also excited to integrate e-wallet into how they can purchase books for their classrooms as well. So that sounds great. The book fair raised $6,892.06. They had a cash profit of $966.92, and a $1,500 profit for Scholastic dollars. They've decided to use $904 of that for the classroom library, specialists, and books for students who had specific needs. And $600 will be utilized and split amongst teachers who will be able to order books for their classrooms as well. They also had a successful pie sale that raised about $3,200. So Wheeler's over there just raising money. And I was really impressed to see a student council effort where students raised money for Down syndrome awareness. And they were able to write a check to the Down Syndrome Literacy and Education Center in New Britain for $312. So great initiative on the student council parts and the students' part. Their next meeting will be January 20th. And this week, they're about to have their Little Shoppers event as well, which the kids are really looking forward to. Thank you.
Wow, they did really good. Oh my gosh. They're like a bunch of money raisers. Smart kids. All right, I think we just have Becky. Is there any CREC report?
There was not much to report from the CREC meeting in November, but I did think that I just wanted to mention that CREC, Capital Regional Education Council, is one of 6 RESCs in the state of Connecticut. Right? RESCs are quasi-state agencies that are developed to assist school districts in that particular region with pretty much anything they may need. In some cases, it might be special education services, sometimes transportation, sometimes food services. Oh, that's one I know about. So they could be any kind of service. CREC itself is mostly known for magnet schools, and I'm saying this too because I know Dave brought up the tuition fees. And one of the reasons that CREC is most known for magnet schools is because of the Ciac case, right? That the state used CREC as a conduit to try and resolve the issues that that were happening in Hartford, and asked CREC to create a lot of magnet schools. And so now we have this situation where we have competition for where kids can go to school, which is a good thing. But in some ways, we may have almost too much competition, not necessarily the right, exactly in the right places. CREC does have, though, a legislative committee that lobbies for state funding for the magnet schools, because everybody that represents CREC understands that the magnet school tuition can affect them personally, because if their kids are going to magnet schools in CREC and the tuition goes up, it impacts your district. So that is something that they're always aware of, and they do lobby every year on behalf of that funding. That was my little PSA.
Okay. There's no chairperson's report this evening. We'll move on to unfinished business, which we don't have any as of yet either. New business. The board open forum. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to speak about? I'll just start. I really think that the kids did an excellent job tonight. I mean, they were just absolutely amazing. So I'm glad that we all got to see that, and if we can get out to see your concert, that'd be great too. Anyone else?
I just wanted to mention PGA Day for CCMC. District-wide, I was looking on all the Twitter pages, all the school pages, and Plainville really did a great job with that. The kids are so excited, and it's such a great donation to make. So I was
Yeah,
happy
they
to
have
see how
fun.
well Plainville did with that.
Anyone else? We'll move on to the quarterly special education cost report. There's no report for this month. Next report will be in January. Also, the same with the turf committee report. The next report will be in May. And the request, we're going to move on to the request approval of the capital budget plan for 2022-23. Mr. LePage, Mr. Alderstein, do either of you have anything further that you wanted to add with that?
No, just that as Sam mentioned in his overview, this is, the second step of at least 5, I guess about 5 in the process. So, we've spent a lot of time coming up with what we believe the needs are for the district, and we understand that what's moved forward today won't be the end result in April, but we hope it would be. But we understand there's more to happen. But this is our best estimate of what is needed.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I would request that we approve the capital budget plan as adjusted and this evening by Mr. Adlerstein, and that then move it into the next stage in its approval process.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And Madam Chairman, I would also like to present a motion to request approval of the expanded unified sports program as presented to us this evening by the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Stephen LePage.
Any discussion? All in favor with hands? Aye.
Aye.
I think somebody seconded down there.
Rebecca did.
Okay.
Very quietly.
Okay, so then that motion passes as well.
Thank you.
We have a large number of policies and regulations this evening. As a reminder of the process, we are approving the policies first, basically stating that we, the members of the Board of Education, agree with the information set forth in these policies and are ready for them to become the official policies of the district. We will then postpone the policies to give the public time to look them over and to give them the opportunity to bring any questions or concerns to us at our next business meeting. After the second reading and approval, the policies will then become the district policy. If there are no objections, I will ask for a motion to approve the aforementioned policies, items F through Z.
Madam Chairman, I so move, and I also move that we table to the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to postpone the aforementioned policies, items F through Z, for a second reading?
Motion to postpone.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Cassandra. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. As a side note, regulations are not policy and therefore only need one reading and are placed under the consent agenda. We have quite a few regulations on the consent agenda. Is there any need for discussion on any of the regulations? If so, we'll need a motion to take those regulations off the consent agenda for discussion. No discussion? Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the entire consent agenda as presented?
Madam Chairman, I request that we approve the consent agenda as presented to the Board of Education for this evening's meeting. That would include consent agendas items A through T.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I guess we can adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Becky was the second.
The motion carries. Happy holidays to all.
Thank you.